Hey everyone, Dan here. Before we get into it, if you enjoy these videos, please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps a lot. And also keep in mind that these are my own thoughts, opinions, and ideas. These are not meant to be, nor should you take them as investment or trading advice in any way, shape, or form. Do your own due diligence, put in the work for yourself, and make your decisions based on that. Enjoy. All right, folks. So today I wanted to do an update on some swing trade buys that I made in my bigger accounts and just sort of walk through why. Try to do it relatively quickly. We have a lot of tickers to get through, but a bunch of them are going to be a combination of what's happening with the MAs or previous supply and demand zones that I had charted and the MACD for sure. So JMIA is my first one here. Now JMIA I've been in and out of several different times, and it's stabilized nicely given this most recent price activity. And then even on this dip, now we're getting our first solid bullish crossover, and it's interacting with this 1950-ish zone that I have plotted here. I don't know why I can't exactly see that, but it hit that as resistance. So what I'm looking for is to see if it can flip this to support. Now, if it can't and it gets pushed down further, that should be pretty noticeable pretty quickly, and I would just cut loss relatively soon. But the other kind of challenge is it does have a resistance zone there, and then it also has the 20 MA coming in that could add additional resistance. But given the bullish cross, I thought it was worth taking a shot at it and just kind of keeping a close eye on it. So we'll see. This is not the position that I'm, that I'm talking about, by the way. This is in my little account. That's the growing $100 trading account. That's a series that I'm doing. So I have one position that I'm holding overnight right now in JMIA. But that's not what I'm talking about from today. But I thought that this double bottom and then the MACD coming up, crossing over. Now, of course, it could do, it had this sort of lackadaisical crossover here, and I don't know if this is going to be similar or if this is going to be any sharper or not. So that's additionally why I want to keep an eye on it. But in general, this big bearish momentum on the histogram is like much crazier, much more bearish than this most recent bearish area on the histogram. So my sort of additional hypothesis there is if the bearish momentum is dying down, if this is sort of establishing this double bottom and now is getting ready to pop off, then if it can get support over that like 1955-56 zone, then we could see a nice area to run through to that 2219 level, which I have plotted next. So that would be a good sort of $3-ish gain on each share, and we'll see how that plays out. The next one that I have is Sofi. I'm just going to type these in so I don't have to search for them in the left bar. Sofi, that's a little bit of a premature position, but a couple of things happening. Sofi is established over this 1411 support zone that I had plotted before, and it very clearly flipped it from resistance, poked it through, and then established as support yesterday, and then today continued to, and it ran up to try to test that 1502 zone that I had plotted as the next level up. So to me, it's looking like this is also a relatively premature position to be taking, but I do like this overall bullish trend up that the MACD line is holding. I do like that this, similar to what we just saw in JMIA, to be honest, that this bearish momentum was potentially, or if it can continue, was squashed pretty quickly compared to this one. So, and then this is, nearing a bullish crossover as well. That's why I say this is a pretty premature position, but I'm factoring in the potential for a bullish crossover, the overall bullish movement up from the MACD, and establishing over this 1411 zone while starting to interact with that 1502 zone. Now that 20 MA coming in is going to add additional resistance. So that 1502 could be sort of more resistancy than it otherwise would have been, but we'll just have to see what happens and kind of keep a tight leash on it. Obviously, if it comes down to test that 1411, I'm okay with that, but if it loses support there and develops resistance under the 1411, then that would sort of signify to me that this play is dead. Tattooed Chef, and if I didn't say this before, these are all meant to be sort of like several day or several week, well, more like several week or several months, sorry, swing trade positions that I'm taking. And so I would give them some time to breathe and play out. But if they go against me relatively quickly, I don't mind jumping out of the position and then re-entering when the play setup looks better. Any of these setups could go kind of kaput, especially with the ones that we're looking at, JMIA, Sofi, and Tattooed Chef, which I just have been playing and watching for a long time, and so I have some familiarity with them, and so I feel a little bit more comfortable taking some riskier positions with those versus stocks that I'm less familiar with, which we'll get to in a few minutes. But Tattoo Chef, similarly on this one, this is not the position that I'm talking about. This is in my little account, but this is trying to establish over the 20 MA, so that's a good sign to me. Nearing a bullish crossover. Could be getting support over the 1799 zone, which I had previously plotted as support. And, you know, this is quite chancy though, because it does have this big bearish momentum that's dippier than the previous one. Let me just zoom this out. Dippier than the previous one, as you see. Came down even further. But I'm sort of relying on if this bullish crossover can effectuate and we can get support over this 20 MA, that it could help carry us above. And then we have two bullish crossovers on the MAs to look forward to. So, you know, in that case, I'd be looking for my price target up here on the best case scenario. But again, could go against me. I'm okay if it comes down and tests that 1799, but similarly, I don't want it to break support there and develop that as resistance. That to me, again, would bust the entire play. And I would just reevaluate. DDD, sort of nice movement here with the MACD coming up even while this recent sell-off has occurred. This MACD is holding really strong to me on the MACD line, not the histogram. And so that combined with a very, very fresh bullish crossover, if that even holds. I mean, it's just a very slight green blip today, right? But it also has now support over this 2822 supply and demand zone that I had charted previously, and appears to be holding support at the moment over this 20 MA, and that 20 MA coming up to potentially bullish cross over the 50 MA, which could add a lot of lift potential to DDD. So that's what I'm looking for on that one. KTOS, I don't really know at all, but this one, similarly, you know, this one is definitely a riskier position because I'm not super familiar with this stock, and so a little bit unlike me to take a riskier position in a stock that I'm not familiar with, but I'm sort of seeing if I can preempt this bullish crossover. It has put together a few nice days. Now that said, the market, like I've been chanting, has been in easy money mode the last few days, so that kind of doesn't mean that much. But the degree to which it can peel back a bunch of what was lost just in this one day, where it dropped down over 10%, that's what I'm looking for. The 20 MA is definitely on a collision course with the price action for the time being anyway. And, you know, I'll sort of see what it does if and when it reaches that point. That said, I'll have a pretty low tolerance level. My area to cut loss will be about this zone right here, where this supply and demand, you know, you see resistance, previous support. So I'm going to keep it pretty tight there, right around 2177, 2175-ish area. I'm okay if it tests it and comes up, but I'm not okay if it falls through and develops that as resistance. Ideally, I want to see this bullish crossover on the MACD effectuate and then go from there. BLDE, nice movement on the MACD coming up, generally bullish even while it was encountering a couple of like short periods of selling off, meaning several days in a row of selling off, and it's continued up. And so I'm hoping that this is sort of a leading precursor of price action to come, plus establishing today full candle, full close over the 20 MA. So I'm hoping that this provides additional lift, and then the next sort of resistance level to overcome is the 50 MA. But if we can get a bullish crossover 20 crossing over the 50, then we'd be lifting toward that 200 potentially, and that could be a nice return if that can play out. Lockheed Martin, so this is a big expensive one, I mean, compared to the others, but I've been watching this one for a while. Finally gets this bullish crossover. It's pretty well beaten down at the moment. So if you take a look here, it's peeled off quite a bit. I mean, you have to, these are big dollar amounts too. So it's nearly at $400, and now it's, nearly down to $350 by the time it bottomed out here, if that's the bottom. Now, the 20 MA did just cross below the 200, which would be a bearish cross, but the price action continued to rise while that happened. So my hope here is that this bullish crossover, nascent though it may be, is going to help carry the price action above and through that 20 MA, scoop us up and carry on. Now, if it falls through previous lows here or recent lows here, that would be my tolerance level for a stop loss on this one. Mara, the Bitcoin place, this is just gonna, more or less play off of Bitcoin. I do see that there could be the potential for Bitcoin to be kind of getting a big second win here. I know it's come up a lot in the last few days, but I could see a bunch of folks coming in with buy orders to help push this up even further in the next days and weeks ahead, but I don't know. That's obviously pure speculation, and we'll have to see. But the MACD holding nicely as we see this nice uptrend here that started below the baseline, and even if you pull it back here, so this has maintained pretty well even through some areas of pretty solid selling off, and now we are in a fully bullish formation as well in the MAs. 20 above the 50, 50 above the 200. And so the degree to which that can add additional lift, there's plenty of room for this to run to the upside based on previous price activity. There's about $20 to the upside if we just want to reach back toward these April highs here. So we'll see what happens. And then the last one, UiPath. It had better days at one point, but it's starting to test this 20 MA and is starting to make a series of higher lows here. MACD coming up nicely from this point forward, even though we've hit a few big days or big combos of days selling off. So I'm hoping that 20 MA can add an additional lift here. Now that said, it has faked this out before, obviously, right? This established above the 20 and then just fell back through. So that will be about my tolerance level, will be these most recent lows. Probably right here around this, just below the $60 level would be about where my stop loss will be. Or if we establish over the 20 and then fall back through, that would sort of trip me in a stop loss kind of fashion, and then just say, this is worth reevaluating and trying to get in at a better point. But the other thing is the 50 and the 20 are much closer now than they were at this point, and so the likelihood that if we do get a lift from this bullish crossover and the price action hopping over the 20, if we can have a bullish cross 20 above the 50, then could really be off to something more meaningful. But we'll have to see. I mean, this is a fresh one to try to dissect, so there's not a ton of historical precedent to go off of, so it's a little bit trickier. All right, well, I hope you had a nice Tuesday and that your week is off to a good start, and I appreciate you watching. I will see you in the next video.